Hello, it is my pleasure to speak with you today about some of what the Police Executive Research Forum has learned in its 10 years of studying the implementation of body camera programs throughout the United States. My name is Martin Bartness, and I hold the position of Senior Principal with the Police Executive Research Forum, commonly known as PERF. A small group of police chiefs founded PERF in 1976 as a research and policy organization that provides management services, technical assistance, and executive level education to support law enforcement agencies. Today, PERF is a membership organization with several thousand members, and our office is located in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. I have two primary experiences with body camera programs. Before joining PERF, I served for 25 years with the Baltimore Police Department, which is less than an hour's drive from Washington, D.C., and is one of the largest police departments in the United States. In 2016, the Baltimore Police Department began implementing its body camera program for over 2,500 police officers. I helped create the program's policy and training, and later I reviewed hundreds of hours of body camera video as part of performance reviews and internal affairs investigations. I also wore a body camera when I was in the field and interacting with the public. My other primary experience with body cameras was as the project lead for a report PERF published in December of last year called Body-Worn Cameras a Decade Later, What We Know Now. That report was a follow-up to the one PERF wrote in 2014, which included 33 policy recommendations and lessons learned for implementing a body-worn program. In researching the most recent report, PERF convened roughly 200 police leaders, academics, and other experts to talk about their experiences with body camera programs now that all police departments serving 1 million or more residents have operationalized them. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 of the most important lessons we have learned from working with those police departments about implementing body camera programs in the United States. The first lesson we've learned is that police actually like wearing body cameras. At 2 national meetings in the past year, PERF asked several hundred chiefs of police, would you discontinue your department's body camera program if you could? All of them said no. This is because police officers now accept body cameras as an integral part of the profession and see their value in sorting fact from fiction, facilitating fair internal investigations, winning criminal prosecutions, promoting public transparency, and improving organizational performance. Much like a police officer's radio, baton, handcuffs, and firearm, a body camera is now considered a standard issue piece of equipment for most police departments in the United States. The second important lesson we've learned is that body camera programs can be a powerful tool in improving organizational culture and performance. While it is true that many police departments have been compelled to adopt body camera programs to facilitate the investigation of complaints of officer misconduct and use of force, and to build community trust through acts of transparency and accountability, in recent years, departments have expanded the use of body cameras to improve organizational performance. One way departments are doing this is through what we call Monday morning quarterbacking. Just as sports teams analyze game footage to identify what went well and what needs improvement, police departments can watch body camera footage of incidents to scrutinize performance, not for the purpose of assigning blame, but to improve their response next time. For instance, during the review of a critical incident, a police chief can lead a robust discussion among commanders by asking questions such as, are the officers' actions consistent with their training? Should supervisors have been on scene? Why didn't anyone intervene when they saw an officer using excessive force? Why didn't the police render first aid? Have the officers been involved in similar incidents in the past? Should the supervisors have known the officers were engaged in this kind of conduct before the incident occurred? Having these kinds of frank and open conversations helps create an organizational culture of continuous improvement and increases the return on investment of costly body camera programs. The third important lesson we have learned is that officers should be required to activate their cameras when responding to all calls for service and during all law enforcement related encounters and activities while the officer is on duty. Policy should clearly define what activation requirement includes, such as traffic stops, arrests, searches, interrogations, and pursuits. And they should know, excuse me, and they should know the exceptions to these rules, such as when recording is unsafe, impossible, or impractical. We also recommend that policy require officers to explain in writing or verbally on camera their reasons for not recording when they make the decision not to. Research shows that body cameras have a much smaller positive impact if officers do not activate their camera as required. Studies have also found that officers who are given more discretion in turning on their body cameras tend to activate them less frequently and to exhibit greater uses of force. This suggests that if departments wish to see positive impacts from body cameras, they should enact strong activation policies, limiting officer discretion, and continuously reinforce these policies through audits, training, and supervision. The fourth important lesson we've learned is that departments should conduct routine audits of officers' body camera footage. During these audits, it's important to note the focus is on improving officer performance rather than imposing discipline. Audits are essential for obtaining officer compliance with agency policy and training, and for identifying performance deficiencies that may require changes to departmental policy, call for additional training, or highlight the need for new equipment. Two of the most audited actions are whether officers have activated their cameras and tagged and titled the incidents they've recorded. To conduct the audits, departments use a variety of practices. In larger agencies, staff assigned to internal affairs and audit and inspections units are commonly tasked with conducting random audits of officers throughout the entire department. In agencies without the resources to dedicate personnel exclusively to reviewing body camera footage, it is common to assign body camera audits to supervisors, with requirements to review a specific number of officers and incidents every month or quarter. Some departments even go outside the agency and hire independent auditors to conduct body camera reviews. Although the public may find the results of an external audit to be more trustworthy, we have found this approach to be infrequently used and only used when required by state statute. Whichever options are chosen, it is extremely important to explain to officers why the audits are being conducted, who will conduct them, and when or how frequently they will be conducted. This will increase internal trust and legitimacy and help build a culture of organizational improvement around body cameras. The fifth important lesson we've learned is that departments have adopted three different approaches to viewing body camera footage after the occurrence of a deadly force incident. One approach is called the restrictive approach. The restrictive approach prohibits officers from viewing camera footage before giving a statement in a deadly force investigation. A second approach is called the permissive approach. The permissive approach allows officers to review body camera footage before giving a statement to investigators in a deadly force incident. Departments almost universally adopted the permissive approach when body camera programs were first implemented, but over time, many departments have begun shifting away from it. The third approach is called the perceptual interview approach. The purpose of a perceptual interview is to capture the involved officer's state of mind and perceptions at the time the incident occurred, without being influenced by what they see in the body camera video. This approach attempts to balance the competing interests of officers and labor unions, prosecutors, and community members. And it is becoming more common within departments, nearly rivaling the permissive approach in its use. How does this approach work? Investigators take perceptual statements from officers involved in a deadly force incident before they are permitted to view body camera footage. After giving the perceptual statement, the involved officers watch the video footage and then provide a more detailed statement, including clarifying any discrepancies between what they saw in the video and what they reported in their perceptual statement. Those are the 5 most important lessons I wanted to leave you with today. There are, of course, many more important lessons, so I hope you will take the time to carefully review PERF's 2 publications on body camera programs. I thank you for the time you have given the Police Executive Research Forum to share some of what we have learned in studying the implementation of body-worn camera programs throughout the United States. We applaud you for the important steps you are taking to further professionalize the police force, and we look forward to further assisting the INL in this transformational work. Thank you.